I'm going down to the next chapter instead of reading the for the teacher part because there really wasn't very much to that. Very little talk about it. This chapter is called Basis of Coming Social Reorganization. And if you're thinking, what? Is that a new world order? Well, yeah, this world's got to be ordered better. But it won't be in the hands of any one group or one man. It will be us realizing the God within and us each being guided by that God within our very own self. And that takes a bit of learning to know how to do that. But that will be the way, I believe. So I'll begin. In taking up this subject of social reorganization, we will begin with Hawaii and the situation there. There is a great similarity in the thought of the Hawaiian people and our own, especially when brought about by experiences. You can take an Hawaiian anywhere in the ocean that you want, and you cannot lose him. Never have they gone out in their canoes, but that there was at least one man in each canoe who could tell where they were as though they had the best compass in the world in that canoe. It was the concern of the others to work the boat, and his business to pilot it at all times. They have brought this capacity down through the ages with them. At one time, we took one of the Hawaiians out into the Atlantic Ocean, where he had never been before, and discovered that his sense of direction was bred in him. We put this man in a boat with sailors who knew nothing of navigation, and he directed them to the Cape Verde Islands, hundreds of miles away. The Hawaiians keep quiet and find the solution readily. They use this quality very definitely. Now remember, this book was written in the 1800s. I hope that they haven't lost this ability. At one time, we took Number 3, the great inventive capacity of the American mind is the functioning of this same sense. The difference lies chiefly in the field into which it is directed. Also, we are all making use of it to a much larger extent than we realize. When we know how we naturally function and then proceed to consciously work in harmony with ourselves, we will make much greater progress in every direction. Did you ever note how you yourself very often function in certain ways through an inner sense or hunch or feeling, and then all the reasons develop afterwards which show the whys and the wherefores? Many people think to try it all out first. Then they never do anything but think, for there is no apparent solution for anything until after it has been done. The feeling that it can be done, or that it should be done, or it were better so and so, is the first activity of this sense. And if one would be still, the rest of the information would come, completing his whole plan of action. Then the intellectual explanation, or the thoughts defining the process, would be readily formulated. The reasoning mind, as we commonly know it, only travels over the same grounds it has previously been over. But reason is never complete until this other sense is taken into account. The new social order will come just as the inventor's ideals come. It will be a flash of revelation, so to speak, and then the mind may put it together and carry it out. Man's description for this new order will be complete only as it is in operation. Reason is descriptive, but this other sense sees and goes beyond reason, opening the way for larger reason. This is not a phase of the superconscious as many style it, nor is it a phase of the subconscious. It is the power to penetrate into either. With the Hawaiians, it is a perfectly conscious thing. It is brought about by involution. It is presented to them and is worked out through them. When they used to go on foot around the islands, before they had transportation at all, They were drawn to places where they were needed. I have seen 40 or 50 of them go across the island to find that some of their people were in trouble there. Sometimes their friends across the island would come to them. They never missed in those things. They were in constant touch with each other all the time. I have inquired of them, and they think nothing of it. They simply function that way because they have never been given the impression that it is anything but natural. Where the interests of those on one side of the island centered wholly within themselves, they would not be concerned about the needs of those on the other side. They are unified through common interest and are concerned with the welfare of those about them. And it is this interest that makes them sensitive to needs outside their own circle or location. Where there is need among their fellows, they draw that sense of need into themselves through the bond of sympathy, which makes them one, and the needs of one group become instantly known by another. Selfishness and self-interest separate us, isolate us from the rest of humanity, and this sense of separateness makes people immune to their needs, thus growing the social structure out of balance. It is in this way that greater and greater needs develop in one group, while greater and greater abundance develops in another, and the whole social structure is thrown out of balance. This is where war and strife develop. Can you imagine two groups going to war, each striving to meet the needs of the other? Nature abhors a vacuum, and just as violent storms occur because of extreme differences in atmospheric pressure, so do wars develop primarily from extremes in the human status. This faculty of the Hawaiians is mostly memory going back to former generations. They have never been out of it. There are no barriers put up between them and their former lives. They say, it isn't that we have lived in this spot all the time. We see all of these places at all times from one point. We have never been separated from it. It is only necessary to become quiet, and then we know where we want to go. In a sense, this is the same faculty of instinct which the animal uses, but just as the man is much higher form of being than the animal, so are all his faculties comparatively enlarged. In the animal, it is instinct, but in man, it is very much extended in its capacity. Call it intuition or spiritual discernment, if you will. The animal has it only to an extent, but the human goes right through. He can see just what he is going to accomplish. The animal returns over the same ground it has traveled, but the human being can go to any position without going over the same ground. It cannot be accurately determined to what extent this faculty leads the animal into new fields, but we do know that it is the primary function of this faculty that has paved the way for human advancement in every field of human progress. The only difference between men of great achievement and those who remain in mediocrity is that the great pay little attention to what has been done and what obstacles or apparent reasons may stand in the way of achievement, but devote themselves to contemplating what can or ought to be done. Those who allow their mental and emotional natures to recoil, refusing to let this sense reach out into the undiscovered, destroy their own capabilities, and this keeps them always in the prison house of limitation. But it should be noted that prison is only the recoil or reflex of their own nature. Genius is that which goes on through conditions and circumstances and keeps eternally in the process of expansion and extension of achieving power. The ability to use this sense for unlimited progress applies to everyone. It is not for the select individual. It is for all to use. The Hawaiians are far more conscious than any others we know of, except the Polynesians. The latter will come to Hawaii on a visit from a distance of 3,000 miles. The true Polynesian and Hawaiian are true Caucasian. It seems that this faculty runs more definitely in the true Caucasian race. If they do not submerge it by doubting its existence or allowing it to stop with apparent limitation, it seems to be greater always. This is what Theodore Roosevelt encountered in Africa. It is evident also in Alaska and Siberia. When I went out in 1905 to take relief to the Amundsen, there was no evidence of a trail at all. But when we were within 30 or 40 miles of that village, the villagers came out and met us, told us how many dogs and sleds we had, and generally all about our party and its equipment. One reason the Americans do not possess this faculty is because they have too many accommodations. We have just let it slip by and have not retained it consciously. Subconsciously or unconsciously, the American has this faculty to a great extent. Most Americans have had the experience of it, but hesitate to use it generally or to say anything about it. The average American thinks it is a sign of being a bit off if something is suggested for which there is no apparent reason. Such a feeling is the result of ignorance regarding the true capacities of the individual and the most vital means he has for any degree of achievement. It is his doubt of himself and his ability that holds him back. If you believe and doubt not, nothing shall be impossible to you, said Jesus. This faculty is the first requisite to sound reason, while the other processes of reason commonly relied upon as the only basis of intelligent reason are secondary. Great achievements have been accomplished from realms beyond reason, and the reasons appeared after. Sound reason is brought about by first looking clear through the limitation, catching the vision of the unapparent, yet entirely possible, and then building the other processes of reason as these facts are worked out. To faith add knowledge, says the Scriptures, but most of us attempt to attain faith by first knowing all about a thing objectively. Then, too, we let others do our thinking for us. We rely upon them to think everything out, to give it form, and then we rely upon the thing produced. The producer becomes more and more capable, and the dependent one becomes more and more dependent. Emerson said as much when he referred to the fact that what we gain on one hand, we lose on the other. We have watches, but we have lost the ability to tell the time of day ourselves. To neglect the development of self through dependence upon anything outside of yourself is to weaken your own nature. The Chaldean astronomers got their information on astronomy through the use of the intuitive faculty, or the power of the mind to penetrate through to fact. They would depend on this completely and then work out their theories. These ancient Chaldeans included the workings of this faculty in their history. It has always been in evidence. The influence is still in existence. If we want it, we must become one with it. That is all. This is the eye of the soul about which the mystics wrote. Through it, men have read and will continue to read the Akashic records. Through it, we may perceive things happening at a distance or envision future events with the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. It comes to us at times during an earthquake or other extremity. Coming events cast their shadows before them. Everything happens first on higher planes, then reflection occurs here. It functions in the Devachan period between consciousness and form. It is the two faces of the gargoyle at the temple gate. Looking one way, it admits limitation of delusion into the temple, man's being. Looking into the realm of spirit, it admits the freedom and power of illumination. The Hawaiians possess a great natural insight into things, and they prophesy and prognosticate. There is a certain group of Hawaiians who will get together and tune in impending influences. If they perceive an influence that is not of benefit, they turn it over to another group who work against it, and it never manifests. Ooh, that'd be good. The Hindus say that one man can prophesy and another God-man can stop fulfillment of the prophecy. So you see, nothing is set in stone. In our experience with the Hawaiians, we never found an instant where they had failed to stop a negative event that had been prophesied. It is claimed that they have stopped many invasions. The ones performing that duty would lay down a certain line, and the enemy could not cross it. Many times this has been included in their legends. At times the enemy could not even land on their shores. The Carnegie Institute experimented some time ago with a group of Indians in Arizona. This group laid down a certain line, and none could cross it except in love. 2 men tried to force their way across the line, and both men lost their lives. The unillumined make the mistake of thinking that prophecy is inevitable, that if a thing is set to happen, it must happen. Whether there be prophecies, they shall fail, says the Scripture. Prophecy comes mostly from the established mental structure immediately surrounding the earth, being the projection of man's own limited thought. The faculty of perception directed into this field may sense the trend of this mental influence and what will likely be the outworking in the material plane. This belongs to the realm of false prophecy, and it can all be set aside. The Scriptures warn against false prophets who turn the attention of the people away from God. True prophecy is the result of keeping this sense directed to the plane of spirit until the individual catches the trend of the universal law. The law of the universe readily sets aside any accumulations to the contrary in the minds of individuals or races. It is accomplished as easily as shadows are dispelled by the light. The sun dispels the night. A single candle will banish darkness from a room, for light, whether small or great, has unlimited power over surrounding darkness, whether it be large or small. Only a little illumination on the part of the individual can dispel any amount of negation, limitation, or false prophecy around him, for they are only vague shadows with no potency within them. Do not accept prophecies of destruction and calamity. Look into the realm of spirit, and they vanish. There was a group of persons in the Hawaiian Islands who came there from Japan, bringing black magic with them. They claimed they could pray a person to death, but that group no longer exists. Before one can practice black magic or become an antichrist, he must first become versed in the powers of the Christ consciousness. He gets the Christ power and uses it erroneously. The outcome of such practice is self-destruction. And with the destruction of individuals given to the practice of black art, the art passes with them. The most painful, if not the quickest method of self-destruction is the misuse of spiritual knowledge. The individual tempted to use this spiritual knowledge to influence, control, or gain advantage over others should remember that every edict which goes forth from his own mind or mouth passes through his own being and becomes a fiat of power within his own nature, working upon himself exactly as he had intended it for another. That is what Christ meant when he said that the kingdom of heaven is within you. Your being is a kingdom, subject to the rulership of what you yourself decree. Whether his decree is accepted by another makes little difference to the individual sending it forth. It is received and acted upon within his own kingdom, and he is sure of the most complete results in his own being. The kingdom within the individual will be heavenly only when it sends forth decrees that come from the heavenly realms, the spirit where all things move in harmony. to promote the well-being and advancement of every individual on earth. The gift is to the giver and comes back to him. Whether it be good or ill, as you give, so you receive. And I want to interject here that I have been correcting my thoughts concerning our President Trump, because sometimes I've thought, boy, I want him to get what's coming to him. Well, that's just wishing I'd get what's coming to me if I think like that. So what I'm thinking now is I want him to learn what is the truth, and for the truth to be more important to him than anything else, that he'll know in his heart what to do. Because when I wish that is a wish I don't mind having be true for myself. So I've had to get on to myself about wishing for something bad to happen to someone just because I think they're doing something evil. Because if I think that I want something bad to happen to them, I'm asking for it to be happening to myself as well, according to that last paragraph I read. And so we all need to look at ourselves about what we are thinking. And don't think the negative thoughts, think positive thoughts. You can have a wish for someone you see as the enemy, but that wish can be that they come to understand and know, not that they get punished. So, anyway, I'll quit interjecting and finish this up. One denomination of Rishas in India is able to perceive an event that is set to happen. If it be evil, another group immediately takes it up and it does not happen at all. This was true also of the Hebrew race in the past. They prevented many wars among their people in that way. Many are using the same method in preventing accidents. We work with a group of over 700 people in the United States that work definitely to prevent accidents. And in the 3.5 years we were with them, there was never an accident in the group. The group has now been augmented until there are about 4,000 members today. They work quietly and are not publicly known. Why should not man put all the forces of his being to work in some good purpose? By keeping his perspective, faculty, or whatever else you may wish to name it, working in the spiritual realm where everything moves in harmony toward the complete good of every being, there would be a corresponding action developed in the minds of all people, because they were all working in obedience to the power that works toward the good of all. They could not possibly say or do anything except that which was for the good of each other. In other words, through obedience to the great law, there could be no conflict among individuals. There could be no word, no accidents, nor any of the other things that make for misery in the ranks of human nature. This capacity can be put to varied uses. There is a case of the World War veteran, De Jong, who was treated in a Letterman hospital at San Francisco, and who, though blind, demonstrated that he had received a higher illumination by driving a car through the streets of San Francisco and Los Angeles. This particular young man had developed the faculty before, and this was simply his sudden awakening. This often happens. The point is that if it can be awakened, it has been proved in so many cases the faculty is there. If there, it can be understood, rightly directed, and awakened to proper function. We must give attention to these things and proceed intelligently to uncover the latent possibilities within our own nature if we would arrive at the place of mastership. No one can do this for us but ourselves. This involves complete emotional control, more particularly than mental control. Hey, that's the emotional control, more particularly than mental control. We must be brought to one-pointedness. When our forces are centered, it works positively. Jesus said, one-pointedness is God. The entire matter of our social reorganization centers around a deeper perception. People must learn how to develop this faculty. That will be the social reorganization. Knowing how to do the right thing at the right time. It will help now to hold the thought of right action always. We will come to the point where we will not know, no, wait a minute. We will come to the point where we will know that everything we do is the right thing to do at the right time. This is the substance of social functioning in the future. And I'm at 25 minutes, and I just want to interject that I think this really works. I've started trying to do it more so in my life by not letting myself have negative thoughts. I realized when I started examining what I think every day that I think negative thoughts a lot. Just about little non-consequential things, like, oh, my hair looks awful, or oh, I don't think I can do that, or oh, why do those people do this or that? Just negative all day long. And so I've been getting on to myself like, no, see the good in everything, because goods often come from things that didn't look like they were good to me when they first happened. And it was years later I'd say, well, it was a good thing that thing that I thought was bad happened, because otherwise I wouldn't have learned. And that was possibly the only way I could have learned it. And beings higher than myself, who help direct my path, as everybody has them, are guides. They know these things. And they let things happen to us that we would call bad. But if we'll look at everything and look for the gift that's in it, then we can see why maybe a divorce that we thought was only bad was really a good thing for us. Because otherwise we wouldn't have gone in a certain direction. And we wouldn't have learned what was our mission that we came here, what we wanted to do. Because we just can't always know what everything is for. Everything that happens to us, we don't know always what it's for. But bless it and say, there's a gift in this, and I won't let it get me down. And you'll get through it, and find the gift that there was in it. Anyway, this is the Dove Lady. Over and out for now. Talk at you again later. Bye-bye.